Welcome to this guided hypnosis meditation. Inspired by The Astral World, Lesson 10 from the 14 Lessons, written down by William Walker Atkinson, whose works and writings serve as an elementary introduction to Theosophy, the perennial philosophy. To truly understand the astral world, the best way would be to guide you using your imagination. Know that during this meditation, you are in complete control at all times. You are safe and all is well. Meditation is effortless. Just relax and bring your focus into the present moment. Start by making yourself comfortable in a peaceful, quiet space where you won't be disturbed, keeping your back straight. Now, in your own time and however you feel it best, take 3 deep breaths, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Take all the time you need. There is no wrong way to begin your journey. You now sink back further into subconscious, deeper and deeper into relaxation. Your eyes are getting heavier and heavier as the muscles of your body release and naturally let go. Down the smooth marble staircase within. A warm mist of perfect calm and perfect peace envelops you. With every breath, you feel your heart center gently pulsing with energy, vibrating forth with pure white light. Focus on the sound of my voice. It is here to lovingly accompany you on this remarkable journey as we go beyond the mind, beyond gravity, and beyond time itself, on through to the astral plane. We are beyond gravity now, and far beyond time and location. Envision your guide beside you. Flesh them out any way you wish. They are competent and experienced, and very confident that you have made considerable spiritual progress. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to accompany them very far. Are you ready? Here in the silence together, you suddenly become aware of having passed out of your body and appear now to be occupying only your astral body. You stand beside your physical body and see it resting where you left it. You realize that you are still connected to it by a bright silvery thread. It looks something like a large bit of bright spider web. You are conscious of and comforted by the presence of your guide, who is lovingly accompanying you on your journey. They have also left their physical body, and they are in their astral form, which reminds you of a wispy, vaporous something. It is the shape of the human body, but it can be seen through and can move through solid objects at will. Your guide takes your hand in theirs and says, "Come." In an instant, you have left your room and are now high above your city, floating along as does a summer cloud. You begin to fear that you may fall, and as soon as the thought enters your mind, You find yourself sinking. But your guide places a hand under you and sustains you, saying, "Don't worry, you can't sink unless you fear you will. Hold on to the thought that you are buoyant, and you will be so." You bravely do, and are delighted to find that you can float at will, moving here and there, however and wherever you wish. You look down and see massive pillars of thought clouds arising from the city, like great clouds of smoke, rolling along and settling here and there. You also see finer, gossamer-like thought clouds in certain areas, which seem to scatter the dark clouds when they come into contact with them. Here and there, you see vibrant thin lines of bright light, like electric sparks traveling rapidly through space, which your guide tells you are telepathic messages passing from one person to another. The light being caused by prana, the life force, with which the thought is charged. You notice, as you descend toward the ground, that every person is surrounded by an egg-shaped body of color, their aura, which reflects their thoughts and current mental state. The character of the thought reflected by the varying colors. Some are surrounded by beautiful auras, while others have around them a black, smoky aura, in which are seen flashes of red light. Seeing some of these auras hurts your heart, as they are reflections of primitive, selfish, and cruel thinking. Seeing them genuinely causes you pain, as you have become more sensitive now that you are out of your physical body. But you don't have much time to spend here. Your time in the astral is short, and your guide gently urges you on. You don't seem to have moved at all in your place in space, but a change seems to have come over everything, like a veil or a gauzy curtain has been pulled back. You no longer see the physical world with its astral phenomena, but appear to be in a new world, a land of strange shapes. You see astral shells floating about, discarded astral bodies of those who have shed them as they have passed on. These are not pleasant to look at, so you hurry on with your guide. But before you leave this second antechamber of the real astral world, your guide patiently advises you to relax your mental dependence upon your astral body. And, much to your surprise, you find yourself slipping out of it, leaving it in the world of the astral shells, but you are still connected to it by a silk-like cord or thread, just as, in turn, it is connected with your physical body, which you have almost forgotten about by now, but to which you are still safely bound by these almost invisible ties. You move forward, clothed in a new body, or rather, an inner garment of ethereal matter, for it seems as if you have been merely shedding one cloak and then another. The you part of yourself remains unchanged. You smile now at the recollection that once upon a time you thought that the body was you. The plane of the astral shells fades away, and you seem to have entered a room of sleeping forms, lying at rest and in peace, the only moving shapes being those from higher spheres, who descend to this plane in order to perform tasks for the good of their humbler brothers and sisters. Occasionally, one who sleeps will show signs of awakening, and at once some of these helpers will cluster around them and seem to melt away into some other plane with them. But the most wonderful thing about this region seems to be that as the sleeper awakens slowly, his astral body slips away from him, as did yours a little before, and passes out of that plane to the place of shells, where it slowly disintegrates and is resolved into its original elements. This discarded shell is not connected with the physical body of the sleeping soul, whose physical body has already been buried or cremated, as it is dead. Nor is the shell connected with the soul which has gone on, as it has finally been discarded and thrown off. It is different in your case, for you have merely left yours in the antechamber and will return and resume its use momentarily. The scene again changes, and you find yourself in the regions of the awakened souls, through which you, with your guide, walk back and forth. You notice that as the awakening souls pass by, they seem to rapidly drop sheath after sheath of their mental bodies, as these higher forms of ethereal coverings are called. And you notice that as you move forward toward the higher planes, your substance becomes lighter and more otherworldly, and that as you return to the lower planes, it becomes heavier and thicker, although always far more delicate and light than even the astral body, and infinitely finer than your material physical body. You also notice that each awakening soul is left to finally wake up on a specific plane. Your guide tells you that that particular plane is determined by the spiritual progress and attainment made by the soul in its past lives. For it, as well as you, have had many earthly lives and visits, and that it is practically impossible for a soul to go beyond the plane to which it belongs, although those on the upper planes may freely revisit the lower planes, this being the rule of the astral world. Not an arbitrary law, but a law of nature. It may be best understood by imagining a large filter or a series of screens, perhaps used for sorting rocks into sizes. The largest rocks are caught by the first screen, the next size by the second, and so on, until the tiniest little grains of sand are reached. Now, the large rocks cannot get to where the smaller sizes are, but if jostled about, the tiny sand can easily pass through the screen to join the large rocks. Just so in the astral world. The souls with the greatest amount of materiality and coarser nature are stopped by the screen of a certain plane and cannot pass on to the higher ones, while one which is passed on to the higher planes, having cast off more confining sheaths, can easily pass backward and forward among the lower planes. In fact, souls often do so for the purpose of visiting friends on the lower planes, giving them comfort and assistance, and, in cases of a highly developed soul, much spiritual help may be given in this way, by means of advice and instruction when the soul on the lower plane is ready for it. You see, all of the planes, in fact, have spiritual helpers from the highest planes. Some of these are devoted and selfless souls, preferring to dedicate their time after death in the astral world, helping humanity, rather than taking their well-earned rest or to pursue certain studies for their own development. This is the way of the Bodhisattva. Your guide explains these things to you as you pass back and forth among the lower sets of planes. The reason you do not go higher at this point will be explained to you in due course. They also let you know that there is one exception to the rule of free passage to the planes below. The lower plane souls are prevented from entering the plane of sleepers, as the chamber of slumber is so very sacred to those who occupy it. And pure souls who have attained a higher plane may freely enter, but not those who have awakened on a low plane. The soul awakens on exactly the plane for which it is suited. and on just the subplane of that plane, which its highest desires and tastes naturally select for it. It is surrounded by like minds and is able to pursue all that the heart of their human body longed for during earth life. It may make considerable progress during this time in the astral world, so when it is reborn, it is able to take a great step forward when compared to its last incarnation. There are countless planes and subplanes, and each soul finds an opportunity to develop and enjoy to the fullest the highest things of which it is capable of during their current time of development. And as has been said, it may perfect itself and evolve so that it may be born under much more favorable conditions and circumstances in the next earth life. But alas, even in this higher world, all do not live up to their best. And instead of making the most of these golden opportunities and growing spiritually, they allow their more material nature to draw them downward, and they spend much of their time on the planes beneath them. Not to help and assist humanity, but to live the less spiritual life of the inhabitants on the lower planes, the more material planes. In such cases, the soul does not get the benefit of the astral world sojourn, and is born back into just about the same condition as the last earth life. It is sent back to learn its lesson over again. The very lowest planes of the astral world are filled with souls of a crude and primitive type, undeveloped and primal, who live as near as possible the lives they lived on earth. About the only thing they gain is the possibility of finally living out their immoral tastes, hopefully enough to become sick and tired of it all, and allowing them to develop a longing for higher good, which will manifest in a better chance when they are reborn. These undeveloped souls cannot, of course, visit the upper planes, and the only plane below them is the plane of shells and the astral subplane, which sits immediately above the material plane. So again, the astral subplane sits directly atop material Earth. So they often flock back as near to Earth as possible. They are able to get so close to planetary life that they become conscious and aware of much that is transpiring there, particularly when the conditions are in harmony with their own darker natures. They practically live on the Earth plane, except that they are separated from it by a tantalizing thin veil, which prevents them from actively participating in it. Except on very rare occasions, they may observe but not join in the Earth life. They hang around the scenes of their old degrading lives and often take possession of one of their own kind, who may be out of their head under the influence of liquor or drugs, and thus these souls may take over and play out their own low desires. Such low souls are so attracted by earth life on its lower planes that their keen desires cause them to speedily reincarnate in similar conditions. Although there is always at least a slight improvement, there is never a going backward. A soul may make several attempts to advance in spite of the self-destructing tendencies of its lower nature, but it never slips quite as far back as the original place it began. The souls in the higher planes, having far less attraction for earth life and having excellent opportunities for advancement, naturally spend a much longer time in the astral world. The general rule being that the higher the plane, the longer the rest and sojourn. But sooner or later, the lesson is fully learned, and the soul yearns for that further advancement that can only come from the experience and action of another life in the physical world. And through the force of its desires, never against its will, remember, the soul is gradually caught in the current sweeping on toward rebirth, and becoming drowsy is helped toward the plane of the room of slumber. And then, falling into the chamber of soul slumber, it gradually dies to the astral world and is reborn into a new earth life in accordance to its desires and tastes, and for which it is fit at that particular stage of its development. It does not fully awaken upon physical birth, but exists in a dreamy state of gradual awakening during the years of early childhood. Its awakening being evidenced by the gradual dawning of intelligence in the child whose brain keeps pace with the demands made upon it. Here, with your guide on this sacred and peaceful inner journey, you have seen examples of all these states of being. You have met and talked with friends and loved ones who have passed out of the body and occupy some of the planes through which you have passed. You have noticed with wonder that these souls acted and spoke as if their life was the only natural one, and in fact, they seemed to think that you had come to them from some outside world. You also noticed that while those on each plane were more or less acquainted with the planes beneath them, they often seemed in total ignorance of those above them, except in the case of those on the highest planes who had awakened to a conscious realization of what it all meant and knew that they were merely in a class working their way upward. Those on the lower planes seemed more or less unconscious of the true meaning of their existence, having not yet awakened to the conscious spiritual stage. You also noticed how few changes these souls seem to have undergone, how they barely seem to know about things spiritual and occult that went on Earth. You also noticed on the lower planes an old friend who in Earth life was a staunch materialist. He did not seem to realize that he was dead and believed that by some catastrophe of nature, he had been transported to some other planet or physical world, and who was still keen as ever in his belief that only oblivion awaits and that death ends everything, and who flew into a rage with the visitors from the higher spheres when they told him who they were and from where they came. He called them rogues and impostors and demanded that they show him proof of their claimed higher spheres if they were indeed genuine. He claimed that their sudden appearances and disappearances were simply the physical phenomena of the new planet he now lives on. You kindly step away from him in the midst of his shouting at you for agreeing with the impostors and visionaries, who, he stubbornly claims, were little better than the spiritualists of the old world. Sadly and quietly, you ask your guide to please take you to the highest spheres. They smile and say, "I'll take you as far as you can go." And in an instant, you find yourself comfortable and at perfect peace on a plane which is so fitted in your desires, your aspirations, your tastes and development, that you beg them to allow you to remain here forever instead of taking you back to Earth. In complete bliss, you explain that you have finally reached home where you belong, here in paradise, here in the astral world. Your guide insists and says that you must return, but warmly reminds you that you are still in one of the subplanes of the comparatively lower planes. This seems impossible to fathom, and you now, like the materialist moments ago, are asking to be shown the greater things. Your guide gently and lovingly says, "No, my child. You have progressed just as far as your limitations will allow. You have reached that part of the other life, which will be yours when you part with the body, unless you manage to develop still more, and thus may pass into a higher grade. But for now, you may go but no further. You have your limits just as I have mine, though only a bit further on than you. No soul may travel beyond its spiritual boundaries. But, continued your guide, beyond your plane and beyond mine are plane after plane after plane connected with our Earth, the splendors of which we cannot conceive. And there are likewise many planes around the other planets in our chain. And there are millions of other worlds. And there are chains of universes just as there are chains of planets. and then greater groups of these chains. And so on, greater and grander, beyond the power of human imagination, on and on and on, higher and higher to inconceivable heights. An infinity of infinities of worlds are before us. Our world and our planetary chain and our systems of suns and stars and our systems of solar systems are but as grains of sand on the beach. In wonder and confusion you cry out, "Then what am I? Just a poor mortal thing, lost among all this inconceivable greatness?" With loving patience, your guide answers, "You are the most precious thing, a living soul. And if you were destroyed, the whole system of universes would crumble, for you are as necessary as the greatest part of it. It cannot do without you. You cannot be lost or destroyed. You are part of it all. You are eternal." You then cry, "And beyond all of this, of which you've told me, what is there? What is the center of it all?" In fascination and joy, your guide replies, "The Absolute." And as your breath brings you back to your physical body, comforted by your familiar surroundings, and just before your guide fades away, you ask them, "How many millions of miles from Earth have we been? And how long were we gone?" They pause and affectionately reply, "You never left the Earth at all. Your body was left alone for only a moment of time. Time and space belong not to the astral world." Take as much time as you need to process and reflect upon your astral journey. And know also that you are able to revisit and access this journey anytime you wish. Thank you for being here, and all my love.